Hi, welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and the last time you saw me, things were completely different. I was playing games at a table while seated in a chair, and I was stuck in my basement. Well, those days are behind us. Now I'm going to be playing games at a table while seated in a chair, and I'm still stuck in my basement. So things really haven't changed that much. However, things look different, right? Hopefully they look better, and that's thanks to viewers like you who've been watching and supporting the channel by submitting your comments, liking it, and telling your friends about it. And also, some of you have been contributing financially, and I really appreciate that. I want to honor those people especially by giving them executive producer credits on this show. Our first executive producer is Vincent Caputa. Thank you very much for the contribution. It just helps to go ahead and fund some of the changes we want to make to the show as we go on. Helps keep the game library stocked and the lights on here. So we appreciate that, but we appreciate everyone. Whether you contribute financially or not, we just like that you're here and you're watching. And hopefully, if this show helps you decide whether or not you want to purchase or not purchase a game, then that'll be beneficial to you, and hopefully also it entertains you. If you do want to contribute to us, you can do so by sending us a PayPal payment at watchitplayed@live.com. I won't be asking for your money except at the beginning of a series and at the end of a series, just to remind you. Beyond that, we're just happy that you're here and watching the show. In this video series, what we like to do is show you how a game is played by allowing you to watch it played. And also, we want you to contribute to the game itself. In the last series, we played Mansions of Madness, and we had some people online who would submit moves for the different characters in the game. I would then record those moves as a single turn, and then the players would submit their next moves, and we'd record that as well. And this way, we went turn by turn through the entire game. And as new rules came up or new situations, they would be explained, and hopefully it gave people a better sense of how the game was played. So we don't really review the game here. There's lots of excellent people you can go to watch reviews of games. What we do here is we show you how it's played. Hopefully give you a real sense of, as best as you can through video, what it feels like to play the game. And to see how the rules interact with one another. Sometimes just reading a manual that you can get online doesn't give you the full picture, and we hope to give you a better picture of that here. So this time we want to do something a little different to allow more viewers to feel like they're participating in the game. Unlike last time where we only had one or two people submitting moves, this time me and my son are going to control one of the characters in the game. And then you guys are going to be able to submit what you think the best moves would be for the next character in the game. Anyone can submit suggestions, people can comment on about it. I'd recommend if you like something that someone else has already submitted, vote up their comment. Me and Luke, who's probably going to be playing with me for most of this game, we'll choose the move that we think best suits the game, and then we will give credit to the person who submitted that move, and we'll go ahead and execute that and record it. Then it'll be your guys' turn again to figure out what to do for the next character until it cycles around back to our turn again. So in this way, hopefully a variety of different people are going to be able to submit their ideas for the next move, and we're all going to work on this together to see if we can come to what will hopefully be a very challenging scenario. So, what game are we going to play? Excellent question. The game we are going to play is Wrath of Ashardalon by Wizards of the Coast. It's a Dungeons & Dragons board game. This is not a role-playing game, it's a board game. Now, the reason why I chose Wrath of Ashardalon as the next game is, well, for a couple of reasons. One is it's part of a series of board games put out by Wizards of the Coast called their D&D Adventure System. It's cooperative games that can be played on their own, like this game can be played all on its own, or you can combine it with the other games in the series. There was one game before this called Castle Ravenloft, and it was very similar. The rules changed just slightly with this release. And then there's a new one coming out called The Legend of Drizzt. And that one, again, very similar, but it's going to introduce a few new rules. And of course, they have completely different monsters in the games, different heroes, and you can combine them, which is really neat. So you can be combining the monsters from all the sets if you want to play. It creates more variety each time you play through the game. But we're going to play through one scenario in this game. The other thing that I like about it is it's fully cooperative. What that means is, if we win the game, we win together, and if we lose the game, we lose together. Because in the last video series, I played as the keeper, and I lost. And I'm not going to lose alone again. So this time, we're all in it together. And the other thing that's nice is like I said, this game is so, these games, the systems are so similar, that if you like or dislike Wrath of Ashardalon, that gives you a pretty good sense of whether or not you would like or dislike Castle Ravenloft or Legend of Drizzt when it comes out. So what I want to do is set up the components for the game here on the table. That way I can talk to you about how they're used in the game, and then in the next video, we'll actually be able to set up the scenario and take our first turn. Before we can play a game, we have to learn how to play it. What better place to start in the rules than with the start tile? This is the tile that begins most scenarios that come with Wrath of Ashardalon. You can see it's made up of several squares. These are spaces that heroes, like this dwarven fighter, can move around on. And to begin the game, your heroes start on any space you choose that's adjacent to these stairs here. And your characters have certain statistics, and we'll look at those in more detail later on, but one of them is speed. And so our dwarf fighter here has a speed of 5, which allows her to move 5 spaces on her turn, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And hopefully you notice there that in addition to being able to move up and down and left and right, you're also able to move diagonally. Now, should you get to the edge of a tile, at the end of your movement step, then during your turn, you're going to be able to reveal a new tile from this randomly shuffled stack of tiles here. Now the scenario will give you some instruction about how to set up this stack of tiles, but basically it's going to involve shuffling and randomizing it, and then sticking in one specific tile somewhere farther down the stack. This means you're going to have to explore a bit in the dungeon before you get to your objective. So if you get to the edge of a tile, you're going to be able to flip over a new tile. You'll look for an arrow on it, and then make sure that arrow is facing the tile that your hero is currently on, and that's how you attach it. And it locks in place like that, which is great. Now when you reveal a new tile, you'll notice there's this burned mark here. What that means is you're going to have to take your stack of monster cards, flip over the top one, take a look at which monster is pictured here, get that model and place it on the scorch mark. Now we're going to have to deal with this monster chasing us around the map and potentially attacking us. So we might want to have to deal with that. Before we talk about combat though, let's talk a little bit more about these tiles. Let's pretend for a moment that we dispensed with this particular monster, and then we got our hero to the edge of this tile. What that means, of course, is we're going to have to reveal a new tile. This one also has an arrow, but it's black, so it's going to be handled a little bit differently. What this means is we attach it again with the arrow facing our hero's tile, and then we're going to have to draw a new monster card, the Cave Bear. We'll put the Cave Bear on the scorch mark. And because the tile had a black arrow, what that means is now we're going to have to get our encounter deck and draw a card from there and resolve it. Now encounters are almost always bad. Very bad. Even the good ones aren't that great. So encounters are not good. You don't like seeing the black arrow for that reason. Also, this tile has another characteristic on it. It has this, well, it looks like kind of an open door. And so we have a stack of closed doors tiles here, and they're randomly shuffled, and you take the top one off and you place it on the tile like so to show that, for the time being at least, this door is closed. And so once you get your hero next to the door, you're able to flip this over and see if it's locked or unlocked, or what you might need to do to discard it and then the door be opened. We'll talk more about that, of course, when we get to it actually in the game. We won't talk about that in any detail now, but that's basically how you move about the board and how new tiles get revealed. And there are other tiles that come up in the game that are slightly different than this, and they have special rules which we'll deal with when we actually encounter that in the scenario, but those are the basics that we need to know for now. Another couple of very important tokens are the Healing Surge tokens, and usually you put those by your start tile. You can start the game with more than 2 Healing Surges, and that's just a way to help make the game easier, or if you had less of them, to make it harder. But the standard number of Healing Surges to start the game with is 2. And what those are used for is if your character is ever reduced to hit points of 0, hit points are basically the character's health, then you would knock the character over. At the beginning of their next turn, they would be able to use a Healing Surge to revive themselves, usually only up to a partial amount of their health. If all the Healing Surges are gone and your character is knocked out and not revived, then you lose the game. So you do not want to use these up any sooner than you have to. It's very important to protect your characters throughout the game, because as soon as one of them is dead, the game is over for the heroes. Okay, so you now know enough about the game that we can start talking about what you get to do on your turn. This is the good stuff. So at the beginning of your turn, it's called the hero phase, and your turn is made up of 3 different phases. In the hero phase, you get 3 different options. You can either move and then attack, you can attack and then move, or you can move and then move. So let's say in this case we wanted to move our fighter. I already explained that her speed is 5, so she can move 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if there was a monster within range, she could attack, but there isn't. If she wanted to, she could move again 5 more spaces, maybe try to come around this corner and attack the Orc Smasher. But let's pretend for a moment she's a little too frightened to do that and instead wants to stop here. When you end your turn on the edge of a tile, it means that once you move into the exploration phase, which is what we're going to do now, you get to flip over a new dungeon tile. Remember, we have to look at the arrow, make sure it's pointing towards our hero's tile, and attach it like so. You want to be careful not to knock over your fighter. That might injure them, like so. And then you see we have a scorch mark, which means we're going to have to place a monster there. So you go to the monster deck, you flip over the top card, it's Cave Bear. So we're going to place that Cave Bear here on the scorch mark. Now, this may be a little bit odd, but this becomes your monster. So during another player's turn, if they reveal a monster, they keep the monster card. And so during your turn, you're going to activate certain monsters, and the monsters you get to activate are the monsters that you've collected during your turn. All the other monsters that might show up on the board because of other players, like let's say this Orc Smasher was revealed during another player's turn, this enemy will not be attacking during your player's turn. However, the monster you've revealed, such as this Cave Bear, it will be attacking this turn. And any other monsters that you might have revealed somewhere else in the dungeon, they'll be attacking this turn as well. However, we're still in the exploration phase. We need to pay attention here to the arrow. If it's white, we won't be playing an encounter card, but if it was black, then we would be playing an encounter card. Keep in mind, you may not always end your turn on the edge of a tile, like so. For instance, you may end your turn here, or here, in which case we're not on the edge of a tile. In that case, you wouldn't be adding any new tiles to the dungeon, and instead, during your villain phase, which is coming up next, you would be forced to draw an encounter card and resolve that. But let's continue here like we were, and we'll put our hero back here. Now, during the villain phase, which happens after the exploration phase, the first thing you do is you check to see if you had brought out a new tile this turn. As I said, if you hadn't brought a new tile, you'd have to resolve an encounter card. If you did bring out a tile, like we have here, you would then move on to the next step in this phase, which is you would have to activate any villains. And when we say activate, what we mean is those monsters or enemies, they move, they take their actions. So villains are different than our regular monsters like these guys. These are generally, the villains are considered sort of the big bosses of the scenario. And those bosses will be outlined in the scenario description, so you know when you're dealing with the villain. We don't have a villain out right now, so we don't have to worry about activating them. Once you're done with your villain, then you get to activate your regular monsters like these guys here. The thing to keep in mind is, during your turn, you only activate the monsters that you've brought out during the courses of your turns, either in this turn or in previous turns. So for instance, this Orc Smasher will pretend that it was brought out by a different player. So during your turn, you'll only be activating the Cave Bear. Now if, for example, you had brought out the Orc Smasher in an earlier turn, then this would have been the first monster that would have come out, this one would have come out afterwards, then that's the order in which you would activate your monsters. You'd first activate the Orc Smasher, and then you would activate the Cave Bear. But let's just go back, make it a little more simple, and pretend the only one you've brought out so far is the Cave Bear. To activate them, it's really, really simple. You just look at the tactics that are listed on the card, and you read them to find the one that applies. Start at the top. This one here says, if the Cave Bear is on the same tile as a hero, it attacks each hero on the tile with a frenzy of claws. Well, this bear is on this tile here. It's not on the same tile as our hero. So that doesn't apply. Move down to the second tactic. If the Cave Bear is within one tile of a hero, it moves adjacent to the closest hero and attacks with a leaping strike. So this one does apply. We move the bear to any adjacent square that we'd like to, next to our hero, and then we have to attack. So attacking, all the attacking stats are down here at the bottom of the monster card here. And you notice it has two different attack options, claws and strike. So if the first condition had applied, he would have attacked with his claws. But instead, the second condition applies, so it's going to be a strike. And here's how you attack. It's very simple. You take your 20-sided die, you roll it, got 19. You add the attack modifier, we're going to add 8 to 19, which would make 27. And then you look at your hero's armor class, it's AC, and you see if that number exceeds the AC. If it does, and I can assure you in this case it does, then the monster has hit you, which means you're going to have to take damage. So this says you take 2 damage and you're dazed. Okay, I've tried to avoid having to bring out the hero cards, but I don't think I can avoid it any longer. Here is the hero card for our dwarf fighter, and it has on it these tokens for hit points. The hero starts, in this case, with 8 hit points, and so it's been damaged for 2. So we've removed 2 hit points from the card. It also says on this attack that the hero has been dazed. So we have a little dazed marker here that we place on the hero. We'll get into what dazed means later in the game when it comes up. It's not good. We'll just leave it at that. So that's how the monster attacks. And if you had other monsters, you would then activate them as well. Or if you had other traps, sometimes traps come up in the game. It could be lava, it could be, let's see, a cage falls down on you and traps you. There's cards for those. Those would activate during this phase as well. But once you've gone through all your monsters and traps, then your turn is over. And then the next player takes their turn, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to move and attack. They're going to explore potentially. They're going to have new monsters come out. They're going to have monsters attack, etc., etc. And that's how the game works. Monsters also have some other stats on them. They have an armor class for when you're attacking them. This is the amount that you have to roll higher than. And then once you hit them, they have a certain number of hit points, and that's how much damage they can take. So they don't have hit point tokens on them, they just have a hit point stat, and when you hit them, you place these little damage markers on them so you can keep track of how many times you've hit them. They also have at the bottom of them here an experience value. So once you've defeated a monster, and we'll show you how to do that a little bit later, then you will collect this card and put it in your little experience pile, and this experience can be used later to level up your character, or you can use it to actually pay off encounter cards. So if you reveal a counter card and you don't like it, if you have 5 experience points collected, you can trade them in to say, I don't want to have to deal with an encounter card this turn. So that can be very, very handy. Now before looking at the good stuff, the player cards and their stats, there's a couple other things we need to sort out. Remember how I said you can move diagonally? Well, that's true for movement, but when you're talking about how many tiles away a monster is, when you're counting tiles, you cannot count diagonally. So this cave bear is not 1 tile away, even though diagonally there's only 1 tile separating them. This bear is considered to be 2 tiles away. Whereas, of course, this monster here is considered to be 1 tile away. The other thing, of course, is you cannot attack a monster when a wall is separating you. So for instance, in this case, we're only 1 tile away from the cave bear, but we've got a wall blocking us. These black spaces here are walls. They're impassable, and you can't shoot through them. Another item of interest is sometimes a tactics card will tell you that a monster moves closer, say 1 tile closer, to the closest hero. In those cases, you would pick up your monster and move them to the scorch mark of the next tile. Now, occasionally, there may already be a monster on the scorch mark. So let's say this Orc Smasher wanted to move. Now there's a bear that's sitting on the scorch mark. This means the player can place the monster anywhere they want on the tile, since the scorch mark is already occupied. Okay, now let's look at the hero's cards. So this is the card for the dwarf fighter that we were looking at earlier. Now the fighter has a name, it has a little bit of fluff here to describe them, and then we have the important statistics. So the first one here is the AC, it's the armor class. The dwarf fighter has a very high AC of 17. So when a monster is attacking this dwarf, you're going to roll a dice for the monster, you're going to add whatever the result is to the attack modifier on the monster card. And if that equals or is higher than the AC of the hero, then that monster will have hit and therefore cause damage to this hero. And the hero has hit points. In this case, the hero is going to start with 8 hit points. You would just pile on 8 hit points on the card, and as they're damaged, you would remove hit points from the card. They also have speed. We already talked about that. That's how many spaces you can move when you move during your hero phase. And then there's a surge value. So in the unfortunate event that you've been killed, or rather knocked out, by having all of your hit points removed from your character, then during the start of your next turn, you would get to spend a healing surge, and then 4 hit points would be returned to you. You wouldn't get the full 8 hit points that you began with. You would get only the surge value. And then you'd have to continue the rest of the adventure at this reduced health level. Now you also get a special ability, it's listed here, Cast Iron Stomach. You get a +5 bonus to rolls to end the poisoned condition. So if your character ever gets poisoned, when you're trying to roll to end that poison condition, you're going to get a +5. Your character also gets some power cards, and they're listed here. Well, actually, one of them is listed because you get it automatically, and then you get to choose a variety of other powers. Each character has a number of power cards to choose from, and you only get to select a few of them. So, for instance, you get to select 1 fighter utility power, 2 fighter at-will powers, and 1 fighter daily power. Let's take a look at those power cards and see how they can be used. So one of the power cards you get automatically is Dwarven Resilience. This is a daily power, and you use this power during your hero phase instead of moving. And then you get to regain 4 hit points. It also has a very special instruction down here to flip this card over when you use this power. That's important because some cards you don't have to flip over when you use them. However, the ones that do, it means you flip it over and then you won't be able to use this power again. Unless, in some rare circumstance, a card comes up that allows you to flip this back over. Otherwise, this card and this power is out of play for the rest of the game. Other cards, like this one here, which is an at-will power, is one you can use every turn as one of your attacks. For instance, here it says, attack 1 adjacent monster. It's going to give you a plus 11 to any roll you make. So in other words, if you were attacking a monster, you would roll, you get a 10, like this, you'd add 11 to it, which would make 21, and then you would check the AC on the monster card that you're attacking. And if that is higher than the AC, then you will do the damage indicated here, 1 damage to that monster. At-will powers are the ones you use the most because you can use them every turn and they don't flip over. And in this case, you get to have 2 at-will powers for your Dwarven fighters. So you might have 2 different attack options to choose from when you're facing off on a monster. Daily powers are usually your most powerful cards. And they are also, like the utility powers, usually one use only. So once you use them, you have to flip it over. In this case here, it says, place your hero adjacent to any hero within 2 tiles of you. Attack 1 adjacent monster. So basically, if you had a friend who's attacking a monster and they're getting overwhelmed, even if they're 2 tiles away, your Dwarven fighter will rush over there, get a plus 7 to its attack, and if it hits, you'll do 3 damage. And there's even small print here that says if you miss, you'll still do at least 1 damage. So that's a very powerful card. And like the utility power before it, once you use it, you flip it over. Those are the basics of power cards, but there is one other really important thing to mention about your hero. Your heroes can level up. See how it says first level here? If you're attacking or attempting to disarm a trap, and you roll a natural 20 on a die, then, in the event that you've also collected 5 experience points worth of monster cards, you notice here's a monster that's worth 2 experience, here's another one worth 2, and let's say you had this one here worth 1. You could trade in 5 experience, and that would allow you to flip over your card and level up your character to level 2. And level 2 characters have much better statistics, they gain a critical hit ability, and they are also able to pick up another ability card, another power card. Now the other thing I should mention is at the beginning of the game, you get to collect 1 randomly drawn treasure card from the treasure deck for your hero. This one here listed as a Dwarven Hammer. You get to play this card immediately, and it's going to give some bonuses to your attacks. Also, anytime you defeat a monster, you also get to collect a new treasure card. But you only get to collect 1 treasure card per turn. So if you go on a major fighting frenzy and slaughter several monsters, you're only still going to get to collect 1 treasure card. And there you have it. That's the rules to Wrath of Ashardalon. Not all the rules, but most of them. We'll deal with the other ones when we get to them. In the meantime, I'm going to end this video here. And then the next video, we're going to set the scene for our adventure. We'll set up the scenario on the table. We'll read about what's going on and why our adventurers are getting into this mess in the first place. And then hopefully I'll have time to take that first turn with our first adventurer. And then it's going to be up to you guys to submit the moves for the next adventurer in our hero party. We'll see you then.